everybody, welcome to the 31st episode of the On The Line Tennis Podcast. It's myself, Jack Edward, and my co-host today is...
Hello, Damian. It's Damian again. I'm glad to be back, and I didn't actually. I was just fully expecting that you were just gonna introduce me.
Apologies, yeah, we
surprised though. But I mean, yeah. Welcome, guys.
Were you mid-water sip, Damien? Sorry. Yeah, I got you off guard. Yeah, David is here today to talk through a bunch of tournaments that happened last week. So much to catch up on. We have Rio, Doha, Dubai, Marseille, Delray Beach. 4 of those, men's tournaments, and it was Dubai that was the women's tournament. There's a lot to catch up on. We'll just dive in, try and keep up. Okay, here we go. And we're going to dive into Rio first. I think, Damien, if you're happy with that.
Yep.
Carlos Alcaraz won the tournament. Plenty to talk about for Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, the guy has broken a bunch of records this week. Makes his top 20 debut, the youngest active player to enter the top 20 ever. So younger than Nadal, younger than Djokovic, younger than Federer, younger than Andy. Only a month younger than Nadal, incidentally. But still, those comparisons still fair, I think, at this point. You know, I don't think it's too much pressure. It just seems like he takes pressure in his stride, honestly, to be fair. Maybe there will come some breaking point, I don't know. But yeah, the hype is real, definitely. I think everybody should be as crazy as they're going. Definitely, Damien. Do you feel that way? Or?
Yeah, I mean, he seems very well equipped to deal with that pressure. I think a lot of that is the partnership that he has with Ferrero. They seem like, sort of have like a father-son relationship more than coach and protege. So, I mean, what I'm hearing from this guy is obviously not like, I'm happy to be here, but I want to be number one. I want to win slams. He even said something about Olympic medals. And honestly, that's great. I can't remember if I made this point. Probably no, it probably wasn't with you. I always have that I talked about something somewhere, but I don't remember to whom and where. But I talked this way about some other youngsters that I think this sort of crazy mentality is maybe even required, because it takes some it takes some way of thinking to become the number one, to be crazy enough to actually think that this is possible. Because there are so many players in the world, and I guess attitude is very important there. And yeah, as you said, he seems like he can handle this pressure. The only comparison I don't like is the one to Nadal that keeps happening, because they literally have very little in common other than going sleeveless.
He just has a big he has a big forehand, I think, and that as well. To be honest, it's
yeah,
not even the same forehand.
Yeah, lefty righty, completely different spin.
Still, I mean the size of the forehand definitely. For me, it does liken him a bit to Nadal, because back in the day when Nadal was ripping that at his peak, arguably, he was the best shot on tour for me. In some ways, obviously it depends on the surface, blah blah blah. But for me, biggest shot on the tour, and the potential with Carlos Alcaraz's forehand is kind of limitless. Which I kind of see the comparison there in a way. But everything else, I agree. Yeah, pretty much nothing similar at all. I love the fact that he, was so happy with the win. Obviously, easy to forget he's only 18 years old and only at the start of his career, so every big win should be really emotional. But I kind of, it was just lovely to see anyway. I kind of forget that this is a massive moment for him. Obviously at Rio as well, it was where he made his debut 2 years ago. Obviously, if everybody tries to cast their mind back, he defeated Albert Ramos Vinolas on his debut at 16 years old. So maybe it's got a special place in his heart as well, possibly. Yeah, I think nobody isn't a Carlos Alcaraz fan, so this was an amazing win probably for most people that watch tennis in general. I'll run through a few of his matches that he won. The one in the quarterfinal, maybe the most impressive, possibly against Berrettini. I don't know if you saw all of this, Damien. As expected, Alcaraz able to win the vast majority of the baseline rallies throughout the match. I wrote a little bit about it on the blog piece I wrote for their match in Australia. Berrettini actually won the majority of his baseline points against 1 in 6 of his opponents in Australia. Obviously, the fact that he is winning 3 points on serve skews the stat a little bit. It's not a lot of his service points aren't going to go to a rally as much as the opponents. But Alcaraz in particular won 46% of the baseline rallies, I think, in Australia against Berrettini. Obviously ended up losing to him as well. So, I mean, here the stat was exactly the same, but 44% for Alcaraz from the baseline, but obviously with a higher percentage of points ending up in baseline rallies. So he's always been better from the back of the court, kind of regardless of the surface, is what I'm trying to say. He's just got a bigger backhand. He can run around the forehand earlier than Berrettini can generally, just because of the size of his two shots. Yeah, I wasn't really that surprised with the result in the end. Don't know if you were, Damien.
Yeah, I mean, here on clay he was able to expose that Berrettini's backhand more easily. Maybe not so much in the second set. I believe maybe another factor was that the balls got heavier. It was raining and all. But in general, I think that this matchup on clay looks kind of lopsided because of what you mentioned. The fact that he pretty much dominated the baseline in both of their matches. The fact that he ended up losing at the Australian Open only speaks to the fact that Berrettini in this particular rivalry, he's actually forced to defend a lot. He's often able to do that effectively because this is, I believe, one of the underrated things about Berrettini. Everyone just says, okay, long rallies, that's not his forte. But to get where he is, you still need to be very very good at them. Actually, turn defense into offense as well. And Berrettini is able to do that exceptionally well a lot of the time as well. But here, in this matchup so far, he pretty much had to rely on Carlos just having a poor patch of play or something like this. And obviously, they come with such an aggressive mindset where he's pretty much hitting every single ball as if he wanted to finish the point instantly. Some people criticize it. So I guess it's early to tell, but watching these super talented youngsters over the past few years, I always had the feeling that this isn't really what you should be focusing on early on. That inconsistency, that it's okay to have that poor patch, because they usually seem to somehow work it out as they age. I don't know if it's about mentality, probably as well. As they get more experience, that's probably the most important factor. These poor patches, they overheating everything for a couple of games, as he did here in the second set, as he did at the Australian Open, if I remember correctly, sets 2 and 3, something like that. That was probably when Alcaraz had the tougher moment. So these patches tend to go away. And as you said, probably almost everyone likes him. I actually saw some discussion on this on Twitter today, and there were some people that claimed that they didn't like Alcaraz. I don't believe them. I've never seen a bad word said about this guy, and I think especially these people who have been following him since he was 14 or 15. I believe we all have grown very fond of him. I saw that some of the arguments were that he is very aggressive in his body language towards the opponent or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I like that. I like feisty guys who can actually back this up with their insane tennis, and he surely does. Am I surprised?
He's not.
Yeah.
I was just going to say he's not a feisty guy. I think a lot of the time when these players come off court and the actual tennis sort of matches their personality, fine, maybe there's a reason to be a little bit annoyed at them. But Alcaraz is one of the sort of most humble, quiet kind of guys.
Of course, for sure, yeah. So
I totally misplaced anger there. Definitely, I think that's just I don't get that at all. If there was an actual reason, a credible reason, maybe if Alcaraz is beating their favorite players, fine, that's probably it. To be honest,
maybe that was also one of the reasons. Who knows? I mean, but he's been certainly super exciting to follow. Not only on clay, of course. His 2 titles so far came on clay, but I think last year he surprised us all with how good he was on hard courts as well.
Exactly.
I mean, a future number 1, and that's all I'm gonna say for now.
Well, if there's one guy I was gonna say it about, I don't think I've said it about anybody else in the last 5 or so years. Certainly not Zverev, not Sinner, not Medvedev even, but Medvedev might actually be obviously.
Medvedev will be number 1 at some point.
Probably, most definitely, yeah. But that's I definitely think the hype is real, is my point anyway.
Yeah.
Next one he had, if I move on to the semi very quickly, just a nice comparison to be drawn with Fognini. I thought this was really interesting. In 2019, Fognini lost to 18-year-old up-and-comer Felix Auger-Aliassime in the first round of Rio, and 4 years later lost to 18-year-old up-and-comer Carlos Alcaraz. So he's had a bit of bad luck at Rio. I thought that was a bit of a shame. This is a bit of a renaissance for him as well. He's really not done much for about, can't remember the last big result he had, to be honest. So yeah, he was playing really well. Alcaraz just, I'll talk about this a bit more. The drop shots he plays, obviously absolutely amazing and totally unstuck Fognini. I think it forces players just to I don't know, they can't settle at the baseline at all. It's such a good weapon to have, and I think the level of execution from Alcaraz is unreal. Like, if you actually look at where the drop shot is landing, it's like the second half of the service box pretty much every single time he hits it. Like, he gets it perfect every time. I think the fact that his forehand is so big as well, that's the reason, obviously if your opponent is further back in their heels expecting a massive shot, then your drop shot's going to be even more powerful. Like I talked about Nadal's use to the drop shot against Medvedev in the Australian Open final, for example. If you run round the forehand, expecting the massive weapon of Nadal, if you play the drop shot from there, it's going to be much more effective, obviously. And Alcaraz does the same thing. He runs around the forehand, normally uses a forehand drop shot rather than a backhand drop shot.
Yeah.
Again, because you're running around the drop shot as well, you have more room to play it rather than trying to play a drop shot down the line, for example, or trying to play a drop shot cross court off the backhand is a little bit tougher as well. It's not as easy when the ball's away from your racket like that. If it's coming into your body like that, it's definitely a lot easier to play. I think we haven't seen that shot from any other up-and-comer as well. It's pretty unique in the way he executes it so consistently.
Musetti,
yeah, definitely. The drop shot in general. I more mean like the runaround forehand drop shot, certainly.
Oh, okay. Musetti has a good forehand drop shot one as well. Yeah, but as you're saying, I think the very important part is that he hits them off the forehand, because that's the shot that the opponents fear.
Yeah.
And he just winds up as if he's going to hit another powerful blast past you, and then he just does the drop shot, and that's why it's so super effective. Obviously, the clay it's gonna be better.
Yeah.
But I think he can use that, and he's been using that on hard courts.
Yeah, it's part of the reason he beat Tsitsipas, definitely. It's a massive component of that in the US Open match, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'd say with Musetti as well, the disguise, obviously, of the backhand, massive for him. It's not really the same way he executes it as Alcaraz, definitely. I would say that much at least. But yeah, his drop shot's class as well, obviously, I would say that. Fognini beaten kind of soundly, I would say, considering. Then in the final against Schwartzman, obviously Schwartzman come off a 5.5 hour day, I guess, in his two matches against Pablo Andujar and Francisco Cerundolo. Just Francisco, even, yeah. Francisco? Francisco.
You said Francesco.
Oh, did I?
Francisco.
Oh my goodness.
Francisco.
I'm not going to be able to get out of this hole without. You can keep saying it, actually, Damien, because I'm going to get you to talk a little bit about him, please. Can you tell us much more about him, Damien? Because obviously you've watched a lot of challenger tennis in your time. He has been a big challenger player for the last year or so, really. Just before Damien dives into that, the Cerundolo brothers both had a really successful Golden Swing last year. One of them making a final and the other one winning Cordoba. They collectively have only won one ATP Tour main draw match between them in the months after the Golden Swing. So now that the Golden Swing's back, there's a bit of success for them. Obviously, it's close to home. It makes sense they do well there, and they're both definitely way, way, way more adept on clay than hard courts. But still quite surprising considering they're both. I think they're both in the top 100 now. You must know that, Damien, surely.
Juan Manuel is falling out. I believe this is around the week where he's dropping Cordoba points. I'm not sure if he's dropped them already. I think he's gonna drop them on Monday. And Fran is in the top 100 right now. Yes. Or did he? Or no? Yeah, he is. He's actually quite high.
He's like 76 or something, I think.
76 or something like this. Yeah. So he is in they swapped places. I mean, he's won 5 challengers, 1 in Europe. I see no reason why he wouldn't be successful on clay elsewhere. Actually, 2 in Europe. Sorry, split in and Cordenons.
Hard to call him a specialist.
Come again?
Harsh to call him a specialist?
Of clay? No, definitely not. I mean, out of the two brothers, he's got a game that can certainly be translated just because of how aggressive he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
The weapons that he has. Juan Manuel obviously has very different court positioning, the moonballing style, which doesn't really work on hard, at least not yet. He would probably need that forehand to give him more free points, just be more aggressive with it, also move a little forward into the court. But Fran, I mean, I see no reason why he wouldn't at some point start having some success on hard. Obviously, he's never going to be quite as much as a natural as he is on clay courts right now. He's got a lot of issues serving out sets, serving out matches as well. We even saw it against Schwartzman. Actually, we even saw it against Schwartzman last week, right? Because he served for the match and didn't take it.
Yeah.
This time he served for the sets, and Schwartzman, as you mentioned, was coming off a 3.5 hour match against Andujar.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point where it really seemed like Fran can just, he's just going to win this because Schwartzman is just dead.
Yeah.
There was a 30-shot rally, can't remember the score, but definitely in the first set when Fran was leading. Schwartzman had needed 30 seconds to be ready for the next point. Like he was just catching breath any way he could.
Mm.
And then Cerundolo it was clear that he decided that he was gonna defeat him by just getting a deep ball and out simply winning on fitness.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. I mean, Schwartzman just absolutely stopped missing.
Yeah.
I mean, Cerundolo is. I don't know if he's a smart guy or not, but on court, it just really often seems like he might not really have that great idea of what to do.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Damien. That was useful. Diego Schwartzman managed to come through that match. Obviously, as you say, maybe quite lucky to come through it in straight sets for sure. Definitely, did come through, and in the final, to be honest, I didn't think he looked mega knackered considering the day before. I thought he still moved fairly well. Maybe there was a little bit of bite off his ball. I don't know, but I did see a few comments sort of preceding the match saying, those drop shots aren't going to work against Schwartzman. That's a lie. That's definitely not true. I mean, you need to look at the level of execution again of that drop shot. It really is amazing. And again, Alcaraz was able to use that to complement the massive forehand. Schwartzman was kept really far back in the court. He's just got too much firepower, kind of like Ruud again in the week before. If you come up against somebody with that big a weapon, you can eventually hit through Schwartzman, definitely. If you've got a big enough, probably mainly forehand, definitely. But yeah, I mean, Alcaraz put on a masterclass. I thought it was brilliant, really, really high level stuff. Maybe top 5 stuff for me, definitely. I can't, remember the last time I was that sort of taken back by a player so early in his career, for sure. So good. What next for Carlos? Top 10 in the world by the end of the year? Question mark. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's too early. Certainly at a lot of the bigger events, I could see him making some deep runs. I think it's early enough for him to make deep runs, definitely at big events. I don't know if he's going to be winning.
Right now, it's not even a bold prediction to say that he was in the top 10. I think it was somewhat bold before the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. But now that he's gained 500 more, I think that's, that many people expect it now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Super exciting stuff. Very excited to see where he goes from here. Definitely. Amazing for tennis in general. Move on to Doha, I think, Damien.
Sure.
So Doha, Roberto Bautista Agut was able to win. Really good week for him. I mean, he hadn't won a title since 2018, also in Doha, incidentally. I mean, his record in Doha is unbelievable. I think he's only lost maybe one match. So he's won 2 titles and he's made the final once as well. Lost to Basilashvili last year.
He also lost one in 2012, I think. Matthias Buckinger, I think, beat him in the opening round. But yeah, it was just 2 matches. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And there was a big break between 2012 and 2018, so it's possible that the conditions weren't even the same.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, completely different player back in 2012 as well.
Of course.
Players he's beat at the event: Khachanov, Rublev, Thiem, Berdych, Djokovic, Wawrinka, Berrettini, albeit in 2018, to be fair. He does insanely well there, and my theory for that incidentally. I don't know, I might be on something here, but I think certainly the conditions, the air is pretty heavy there, I'm pretty sure. So I think the ball would go fairly slowly through the court, through the air even. So it's easier for him to run around the forehand, but the hard courts themselves still give a bit of zip to the ball. So I think that weapon of his still has a bit of strength, but he can set it up a little bit quicker than he would normally. So I mean, I think that's it, because obviously he's not good on clay generally. In fact, it's pretty fair to say he's quite bad on clay. I think just that extra zip off the court is what gives that weapon of his, and it's an underrated weapon. I think that forehand from that backhand corner for Bautista Agut is really good, and it's obviously incredibly solid. The guy's not going to miss it if he gets the chance to set it up. So yeah, really, really difficult weapon to counter. Off that theory, I'd like to talk about Andy a little bit, because Andy's match was, obviously incredibly bad on paper. I mean, it was incredibly bad, but I want to go over why it's maybe not as bad as it looks. Although I'm interested to hear what you think first, Damien.
I definitely didn't expect that sort of a result in terms of the lopsidedness. Obviously, the Bautista Agut winning was certainly something probably slightly more likely than Murray, but but I mean 6-0, 6-1. That's one of his worst losses ever, right?
Yeah. I think he's had two other love and one losses.
Federer at quarterfinals and something else.
Yeah, 2014.
I certainly didn't expect that Bautista Agut was dominating the short rallies so much.
Yeah.
From a match like Murray Bautista Agut, you expect 3 hours, especially in Doha, which is quite, as you mentioned. I think the conditions are quite slow, not super slow, because as you said, on clay Bautista Agut is not good. Mostly, I believe, because the backhand has like relative lack of depth.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much of a weakness on clay courts. Obviously, bad. If that he's bad, there is probably a little bit of a stretch. Like made the fourth round Roland Garros, won a title, right? Stadt maybe, yeah, something like that. But anyhow, I think Berrettini. But never mind. Obviously, this is absolutely not on the topic. But anyhow, that was what surprised me. That the longer rallies, they were pretty much even. I think Bautista Agut won like 11-8, something like this.
Yeah.
And the shorter and the medium ones, I mean, that was like a total dominance.
Yeah.
He had a lot more pop on his ground strokes than Murray.
Yeah.
Which is not really something you associate with Bautista Agut, because people always seem to think about him, and I do too. I mean, as that sort of consistent, never gonna miss guy. But he, as you mentioned, that forehand is an actual weapon,
mm-hmm.
and it showed in this match. Murray had nothing like this, and I guess that sort of speaks of an issue that a lot of people have been pointing out, that Murray is still playing the game as he played it back in 2016, 17.
Mm-hmm.
17, he was obviously already injured, but let's say 2016, like that he's basically trying to play the same style.
Yeah.
While he's the big rivals of his, the rest of the big four, over time they actually had to make changes. They adapted. They started playing a lot of shorter points. They improved their serves. Maybe not Federer, because his serve was always great, but Djokovic and Nadal certainly did. And I guess I would agree with that. That Murray is basically trying to play the tennis in the same way as he did before, and it's not necessarily going to work. Obviously, he's still a very competitive player. He's been making these second rounds, right, left and right. Obviously, had a final in Sydney, which is a big improvement over anything he did in 2021.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit worrying that if not for these wild cards, he'd be. We don't really know where he'd be right now. Like,
yeah,
I have no idea if it would actually benefit him to start entering challengers on his ranking. Whether he'd actually be winning them, because this is playing 5 matches in a row. I'm obviously certainly very confident that Murray has the level to win a lot of challengers still.
Yeah.
But whether he can actually win 5 matches in a row is another question. especially in some of the tougher fields that are there. So, yeah, I think even though he made that final in Sydney, that his career is still at a little bit of a crossroads, and
Yeah, definitely.
I really don't know where he's going.
Definitely,
Frankly.
yeah. I definitely think he's so a bit more about the serve. Definitely, he's tried to make some improvements to that. And I mean, there was matches last year where I thought he served better than I'd seen him serve in his career.
Yeah,
Definitely, 100%. But I mean, he's not coming to court with that day in day out. And he said after the match he couldn't crack an egg with his serve. I mean, he was so unhappy with his service level. I think there's days where maybe it just doesn't click. And incidentally, if you're not going to serve well against RBA, there's not going to be any momentum swings for the guy. If he's winning the shorter points consistently, that's not going to change. I think, if there's no way for him to win cheap and easy points, yeah, maybe 11-1 isn't the craziest score in the world. I don't think it would have been much better if he was serving okay. It might have been 4-4 or something, but if he was serving badly on a day like that, yeah, fair enough. Maybe a bad loss isn't the craziest thing against a guy like RBA. Definitely, that's all I would say. But it was still a pretty shit day for him. I would say that much. Less about Andy though. I'll move on to a bit more about RBA. He was able to win a couple of really good matches in the tail end of the tournament. The semi-final against Khachanov in particular was really, really good. Twice, so in the semi-final and the final. At 5-all in Khachanov serving the third set, Khachanov went 40-love up. Bautista Agut breaks, basically to win the match. Against Basilashvili in the second set, 3-1 40-love. Bautista Agut breaks to break back, and then obviously won the second set, managed to win the match in straight sets. The guy's dig-in ability is, I don't know, maybe not underrated. I think a lot of guys know how good that is from Bautista Agut, definitely, but it's worth noting, definitely. I mean, the guy just keeps going. Definitely a fighter. I don't know if that's maybe a word I would totally have attributed to him. Definitely consistent, but yeah, I mean, he deserves a bit of credit for that. Definitely, it's really, really impressive. Against Basilashvili, it was kind of one of those days. I don't know how much what you saw, Damien, but Basilashvili took the early lead in both sets, a break up in the first set and the second set, and ended up losing the straight sets. It was kind of an up and down one. Bautista Agut still able to actually attack in quite a lot of the points as well. Again, maybe because of the slow air. So it wasn't all just Basilashvili hitting and missing, but at the same time, the consistency just wasn't there for Basilashvili, which is not that crazy a surprise, I guess. Desperately needed a result like that, though, even just a final, right? I mean, the guy even won a match this year? No, I don't think he had.
No, he didn't. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Lost the two matches to Murray.
Yes, of course.
It was 0-6. But it's also going back to what I said like a minute ago. It's also in the final we sort of had the same contrast that Bautista Agut and Basilashvili have such different strengths, and yet these Doha courts suit them, pretty much just as well. Basilashvili also has a crazy record in Doha, like something like 17-4, I believe.
Wow.
Which is obviously a huge improvement on
probably his best
comparing
event.
to any other event he played. Yeah. As Bautista Agut, that's probably also his best event.
Yeah.
And it makes sense for Basilashvili. He's definitely, even though powerful players are usually associated with faster conditions, when he's got the time to set up the grand strokes, that's when he practically starts playing with himself.
Yeah. Definitely. I found it, I don't know if you saw this, but it was interesting what Bautista said after the match. Obviously, they had played the final last year in 2021, and Basilashvili was the one that had come out on top. He mentioned the fact that the conditions were nowhere near as windy this final. So, obviously, for somebody like Basilashvili playing in the wind, again, has the
in that final as in that. Today, this year, or
so last year it was windy. This year it wasn't windy.
Then it makes sense that. Yeah. Oh, actually, does it?
Well,
last year it was windy.
Mm.
So Basilashvili wouldn't really like wind, would he?
I get what you mean. Yeah, you kind of think wind would maybe make it a bit more erratic for what you sort of exacerbate that erraticness.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's definitely what he said for sure, because he was saying, he said he just talked about the lack of wind compared to last year, definitely. So
okay.
That's all I can think. Maybe it's kind of like Rafa. Rafa definitely likes windy conditions, and I think it's because of how much spinning parts on the ball.
Was it Gasquet who said recently that he's like a top 20 player with a wind,
Yeah.
or with the wind, or top 10 player with the wind, something like this?
Yeah, again, loads of spin on the ball, I guess. Maybe that's it. Because I think players who have more
Maybe.
spin, it's a lot easier to control the ball, definitely, and just
Yeah, in the wind, I am one of the best. I love that. If I only played the circuit with wind, I would be top 15, top 20. I was born in the wind. That's quite a quote. Yeah.
It's a poignant statement. I like that. Yeah, it's cool.
I think that was after the Umber match at the Australian Open.
Was it?
I think so.
All right. I also saw him say his forehand was top 200 in the world.
Oh yes, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Probably even lower.
yeah. Just a very, very self-effacing. I liked it. Yeah, so that's my theory. I think if you've got a lot of spin in your ball, definitely, it's going to be easier to control the ball and get used to whatever gusts and blusters there are on court. Is all I can think. So, yeah, interesting to hear Bautista Agut talk about that. Anyway, pretty likable guy. So, nice one. Really liked it. Definitely. I'd like to move on to Dubai, Damien. If that's okay.
Yep. Dubai?
Yes.
Women.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
not this year. Yeah, not this year.
Yeah,
not this
yeah.
week even. Yeah.
Not this week, yeah.
Yeah. Helena Ostapenko able to win there. Probably with one of the toughest draws in recent time at 500, definitely, I would say. I mean, I was very, very impressed with it. She beat 4 Grand Slam champions in a row. Beat Sofia Kenin, Iga Swiatek, Petra Kvitova and Simona Halep on the bounce. I mean, obviously Ostapenko winning a title in general is not surprising, but she hadn't done much for a while. I can't remember the last time she won a title. Maybe Damien's getting that up now. I'm not sure, but
yeah. Actually, was checking something else, but I can about Ostapenko, but I can see that as well. Yeah, I can't remember her last title. Honestly, is it possible?
That might be last year.
Eastbourne,
Actually. Yeah, it was last
year. She won
year.
Eastbourne, yeah. She won Eastbourne.
Okay, yeah. Other than Eastbourne, yeah. Anyway, I mean, she returns to the top 20 for the first time since 2018, so that's the more important thing. She hadn't had a string of good results for a while, definitely. And just going through a few of the matches she played. So against Swiatek, I'm not going to dive into this too much, but Swiatek, again, serve was pretty poor. I don't know what's happened really, but it seems to have kind of gone off the boil a wee bit. Certainly in August, it was pretty bad. I was going to say, she had problems with it all fortnight, and obviously still got to the semis. So the rest of her games in good nick, but the serve is kind of all over the place. Definitely.
I think the first serve is one thing. Like she definitely improved it, and she has very good days with it, especially as she can really follow it up with a good serve plus one. But the second serve, I think she tends to struggle against opponents who can just blast through it, like Collins, like Ostapenko. Also in faster conditions, like in Dubai, I believe the forehand backswing is a little bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Because she just requires plenty of time there, and you can rush her to that wing.
Yeah.
Ostapenko probably took full control of that.
The serve was poor, definitely, and it's something she'll need to sort. It's just bizarre as well because she had like the best second serve points won on tour, I think, last year. Not even just on clay. It was hard court as well. She had a really good record. So something's gone pretty badly wrong recently for it to be this bad. So yeah, lots of thoughts. Obviously, the rest of the game's really good and went to a third set tiebreak, so it was really close. The Kvitova match. That was really exciting. I mean, there was plenty of chances for Kvitova to actually win the match. Up 5-4 in the second set, 30-love. Ostapenko obviously swung for the fences naturally, as she does. Pulled off a couple of line-licking balls. In the final set as well, Kvitova served for it again. Couldn't quite make it. Had a match point in the tiebreak. Couldn't convert it. Brilliant match. Yeah, it was really, really good. Kvitova actually showing a level of tennis that I hadn't seen from her in ages. I thought it was really good.
Yep.
Get off the back of beating Sabalenka, she kind of backed it up really well. First top 10 win against Sabalenka, incidentally, since beating Barty in Doha 2 years ago. So she really needs something like that, a week like that for sure. If she's going to have some sort of renaissance in her career, definitely. I was really impressed with it. Yeah, Ostapenko, though, I mean, so brave in the big points. She was able to close that one out. In the next match, she was able to beat Halep. I don't know how much of the precursor to this match you saw, but she'd said pre-match she'd won their French Open match because Halep couldn't handle her pace. Did you see that?
No, I didn't, but I mean, I remember during that French Open, there was all these stats, in the business end of it, there were all these stats comparing Ostapenko's forehand pace to who was in the final then? Nadal and Thiem, probably.
Yeah, 2009.
No, Nadal and Wawrinka, right?
Yeah.
2017 was Nadal and Wawrinka.
Yeah.
Comparing that to Nadal's, and Ostapenko had higher scores.
Yeah.
No, obviously, yeah, it's sort of the case. Halep plays that style of tennis where she's maybe sometimes a little bit too defensive. So if the opponent is redlining, then there are these matches when she just has nothing to do. Obviously, this wasn't really the case here in the beginning, but from the moment when Ostapenko took control, that's pretty much what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's been an issue for Halep in her entire career, I believe. And
yeah.
Even the match just lost to Caro Garcia, that was sort of the case as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Halep said she didn't agree. Incidentally, she cited their match in Beijing where she was able to win, and said there was people that hit the ball harder. Obviously, you know, her way of saying it was a little bit different to Ostapenko's. Ostapenko a little bit forward with how she says stuff, for want of a better word.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just interested to see a bit of a fire before the match. I like that, definitely. Yeah, I mean, Halep was pretty close to winning it, actually. I think she's been playing amazingly all year. I don't think people should be too worried by the bagel set or the loss to Caroline Garcia this week, incidentally. You know, she's had a really good year so far. I think some of the tennis she's produced so far, some of her best for sure. I don't think there's much evidence that she's going to trail away at all at any point. You know, I think it's been good stuff for her so far, definitely. I'll rein in a little bit on Dubai. I think just quickly say about Kudermetova. You know, I mean, Ostapenko, I think probably her most erratic shot for me is her return, and if she's not missing her return, she's pretty much impossible to live with a lot of the time. She won 58% of her return points against Kudermetova's serve. Ended up being a 11-4 final. So, yeah, you know, Ostapenko, when she's on, definitely. Really good tournament for her. Returns to the top 20 for the first time since 2018. Who is she playing? I can't remember, actually. I'll leave it out. I can't remember who she's playing this week. But, you know, plenty of opportunities for her to do well moving forward.
She defeated Dodin yesterday.
Yeah.
And now she's playing Anisimova.
Yes, yeah. So that'll be a really exciting match, obviously. Who can return better? We'll see. Yeah, should be an exciting match. Well done, Ostapenko. I think we'll move on to Marseille now. In Marseille, Rublev was able to pick up his, I don't have it down, I think it's his 9th title, though. Maybe you'll know, David.
I will see. I don't know.
I'll say 9th title for now. I'll edit it out later if it's wrong. I think it's his 9th title.
Yeah, it is.
Yep, awesome. He was able to defeat Felix in the final. First, I'd like to talk about his semi-final. There was a name there that some listeners might not recognise, possibly Benjamin Bonzi, a Frenchman who has had little success on the ATP Tour, but has had plenty of success on the Challenger Tour. In fact, he won 7-8 titles last year.
6 last year and 7 just 2 weeks ago in Cherbourg, yeah.
Right, okay, yeah. So, I mean, he's been class on the Challenger level, but is it safe to say he is maybe mentally underperforming when he's coming to the ATP level?
I think in most cases that was it. Yeah, last year in Montpellier he had that match against Goffin, which he certainly could have won. Goffin went on to win the title. Mm-hmm. He also had these weird losses like to Ebden at Marseille. Obviously Ebden has been a good player before, but just compared to the level at which he was performing in challengers, especially there was this stretch between, like in 20 days he won 3 of them. All in France, but two outdoor, one indoor hard. And I mean, it happens every time that when someone has this much success on the Challenger Tour, you're sort of like, okay, maybe he's doing that because of weaker opposition, but just purely on the eye test, like it just didn't seem possible that he wouldn't at some point have a good main tour run. Mm-hmm. The end of last year was basically ruined for him because of overplaying. Mm-hmm. But even here, the way he started, he had great performances, but then again against Goffin and again in Montpellier, he blew a huge lead, and it really seemed like a huge mental block. So I think this is extremely important for him to do this, especially the Karatsev win, even though he was Karatsev had some physical issues. I think it was a knee, possibly something with his leg for sure.
Right.
And definitely didn't play great. But just to get that win over a top 20 player has to be so big for Bonzi, and also play a very good match against Rublev. Maybe the first set could have been better, but I always thought that this must come at some point, but I was extremely worried and disappointed a lot of times when it seemed like Bonzi plays a fantastic match either on the Challenger Tour or in the first round of a tournament, and the second round is just awful. A good example is the Australian Open, where he defeated Korovchik, obviously, isn't in great form, but the way Bonzi was serving there, which is actually a huge part of why he's so good on indoors right now. That serve wasn't really there before 2021, at least not. It wasn't this good, and his foot speed was probably the best asset he had. Right now, he's got all that attacking options as well. If he has the confidence to go back and down the line, he's excellent. But I was really just expecting him to have a shot at least against Khachanov in the second round at the Australian Open. There's just been plenty of these matches on the main tour where, based on his level from the challengers, you'd expect he must have, at least a decent chance.
Yeah.
And he never did. So that's why I think that win against Karatsev has to be very important for his confidence, and also the sets he took, the good match he played against Rublev.
Yeah, really, really interesting stuff, David. Incidentally, against Karatsev, he lost. I mean, as you say, Karatsev a little bit underperforming for sure, but it lost just 7 points in serve. So obviously, it's a part of his game that's really strong. And yeah, I mean, if he's able to set up his second shot really easily with his quick footwork, then indoors for him definitely is going to be a preferred surface. That makes sense. Yeah, good match against Rublev, but didn't quite make it in the final for Rublev against Felix Auger-Aliassime. Awesome to see Felix making back-to-back finals, but evidently not something maybe he's used to. Definitely a little loose in the final, given the amount of tennis he played. Having
he did the same 2 years ago, right? Rotterdam, Marseille.
Did he?
The same double, I think.
Yeah, okay,
so.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, he lost to Monfils maybe in Rotterdam, and then to Tsitsipas in Marseille for sure.
Yeah, both correct. I'm pretty sure because those both ring a bell. I mean, yeah, he played some really good matches. Coming through Songa, Vashka, and Sofia all in straight sets. Really impressive. For me, though, I think this is what I'm trying to stress. Basically, I don't think this was much of a mental block. Really, I really do think a relief. Well, he said it himself. A relief had been lifted after winning Rotterdam. It didn't look like he was nervy or anything in the final. It did just look like some of his shots didn't have quite as much bite as they had the preceding week. Definitely, a little bit more than that. I think second serve of both players definitely exploitable. Rublev in particular, I would say, is probably his worst shot. In the second set, though, plenty of chances for Auger-Aliassime, who had dug in to claw it back to 5-0. I think Rublev had served for the match. Hadn't quite made it, though. And then, 6-5 down Rublev, plenty of chances to just kill Rublev's second serve, and he couldn't really do much with it. Certainly not indicative of the form Auger-Aliassime had shown as well. It didn't look nervy. It just looked like he couldn't quite get the bite he was looking for. Certainly on the forehand as well. I think for me, Auger-Aliassime's biggest weapon is his serve plus, forehand. It doesn't matter where it's going, but the inside in forehand in particular is really, really impressive. Likes to camp out in that backhand corner. Just couldn't get that first shot after the serve to be quite as big as he had last week. I mean, it just happened over and over again where the rallies were going on a little bit longer than they should have, and just giving Rublev a few more chances than he should have got. Definitely. I mean, Auger-Aliassime was close to unbreakable at his peak. Last week. Definitely, he was just so immaculate, so clean every single game. I mean, credit to Rublev. He actually has a really good down the line backhand, and a lot of the time when Auger-Aliassime sort of camped in that backhand corner against somebody like Tsitsipas, for example, he's kind of relying on Tsitsipas not having that down the line backhand basically to get out of that pattern of play, and it's basically just Auger-Aliassime looking for that first forehand before Tsitsipas can. Rublev a lot more capable of crunching it down the line and stopping that pattern play from continuing. Basically, there was a few times, definitely 5-0 in the first set comes to mind, where Rublev was able to break that pattern of play, and that ended up being the crucial break in that set. Just not as easy a dynamic for Auger-Aliassime to live with, and when he wasn't quite pulling off his service forehand as well as he had the week before, it just gave Rublev the edge, who also didn't play an amazing match, to be honest. So it was quite a surprise that it ended in straight sets.
Yeah, fair point about the Rublev backhand. I mean, this is a part of his game that is not really talked about, because it's just so hard not to focus on the forehand. But you're absolutely right that he's very capable of just crunching it down the line, and then it's certainly not a weakness anymore as it probably was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Definitely.
Let's continue the pronunciation masterclass. It's Auger. Like
Auger.
it can't be. Yeah, it can't be a G. It has to be that J, like in.
I say,
French.
I flip between the two, so I've got it right sometimes.
Okay.
I have pals
Yeah,
who
it's for sure Auger, I assume.
I have pals who
Mhm.
pronounce it a lot worse than that, so I feel like I'm not too bad. I've got people who sort of shorten it to 3 syllables somehow, to be fair. So
Yeah, I've heard. I was actually very surprised to learn that, but I saw a lot of people on Twitter freaking out on how are these commentators still not getting Felix Auger-Aliassime right. It's been 4 or 5 years since they started watching it. But yeah, the thing I've been super impressed with Felix this year. Oh, we can always say Felix or FAA.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the thing I've been impressed with is the clutch factor.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a guy who is mostly known. Well, mostly known. This is a very
He's got
bad phrase.
he's got a reputation for it though, definitely.
Yeah, he had a reputation for being unclutch.
Yeah.
And right now it's been completely different ever since this year started. Even though he blew that 2 sets to love lead against Medvedev.
Yeah, I don't think he blew it at all.
We cannot really blame him for that at all. And he's like 13-4, I believe, in tiebreaks this year.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Which has been a huge, it has been a huge part of his Australian Open run. Also here in Rotterdam, and obviously he lost one to Rublev in the finals. But this is something that probably really turned his game around for me. I mean, he's quite clearly right now at this level where he can contend for big titles, and he's probably going to. And the past 3 slams, he's made it at least to the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So this is really such a huge development in his game. And we mentioned that we're sort of expecting Alcaraz to be in the top 10 at the end of the year. I think Auger-Aliassime is, just another guy who really should be there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I don't know, tennis aficionados definitely don't underrate the fact he's done well at the slams, but certainly tennis laymen maybe might not appreciate that making back-to-back quarterfinals at a Grand Slam is not an easy feat at all, and it's really, really testament to how consistent Auger-Aliassime has been in general. Definitely, like it's not something to be underrated at all. So he's already had the success before this title, which is why we were certain this title was going to come. Me and Gav definitely, it was just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Obviously such a relief to see him do it, and I'm not too worried about the loss to
either. He's never going to have a good finals record now. He's one time down.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be a mental block anymore. It just wouldn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm super glad to see him do it. But I also never really thought he might end up pulling a Beneteau.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just so far too good at this stage of his career, and that's all.
Yeah, he's still only 21. Isn't he? 21, I think.
The year 2000, I think he was born.
Yeah.
So yeah, 21.
Yeah. And incidentally about that finals record, I mean, Monfils has clawed his back a little bit. Just look at other people for inspiration. I'm sure his was like 5-22 or something at one point in his career.
Yeah, he had a very bad one. Yeah.
It was pretty appalling. Yeah. So I mean, he's clawed his back. There's other players that have done it, Felix. So don't worry. Close with Delray Beach. Yep.
Sure.
So Cam Norrie managed to win his 3rd title.
519. Sorry, just to
go back.
He hit 519 at one point, and then he had 721. So that's a little bit better. So 519, was the worst.
He's only won 2 titles since then. Oh, okay.
No, he's no. He's now on 1122.
Oh right, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, that was the last 5. He won 4 simply.
Yeah.
Simply.
Yeah, pretty poor. Yeah, thank you, Damien. Always on the stats super quickly. Cam, won the 3rd title of his career. I don't know why I'm not writing down the title count. I'm just trying to get this off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's the 3rd title of his career. Los Cabos, Indian Wells.
Los Cabos, Indian Wells,
Delray
makes
Beach.
sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, return to form, because I don't think he'd won a match this year. Really good for him to come through the tournament without dropping a set as well. just want to talk about the Cam Apelca final a little bit. So obviously Apelca, he didn't look quite at his best, but at the same time, the guy had only been broken twice in his last 8 matches, so it was always going to be a tall order. Pardon the pun. Cam wasn't able to break on any of 5 break points he had throughout the match. So yeah, clutchness of Apelca certainly a factor for him nowadays. Always is going to be probably for the big guys, to be fair. But he's starting to match somebody like Isner at his best on break points, coming up with a first serve every time. On all 5, I mean, ridiculous. In fact, it might not have been. It certainly came up with a clutch play every time at least. The 2 tie breaks, though, I mean, Cam had been the better player throughout the match, to be honest. And the 2 tie breaks resulting as they did wasn't much of a surprise. Apelca really keen to move forward given the conditions. Cam was happy to sit really deep in the court and return, use his forehand to freak spin the ball back into play. Certainly not something that Apelca was easily able to deal with. Not many players are, but Apelca certainly not that adept at dealing with crazy balls like that. Cam could just spin it back into play, and it would be pretty much his point if he landed the return, definitely. So yeah, Apelca trying to move forward. He's not the worst at the net for sure. I would have liked to have seen more serving volleys, definitely. He was trying to do it mid-rally a lot of the time, and there was a few crucial points in the tie breaks that went Norrie's way because Apelca tried to move in at the wrong time. Again, as well, obviously, we saw Apelca beat Brooksby last week. The rally temperament of the guy is something that's improved tenfold over the last year or so, for sure. It just, Cam, obviously, similar to Brooksby in rally temperament, for sure, but the style of their shots completely different, and I think it kind of showed it was something that Apelca couldn't deal with as easily as maybe the more predictable shots of Brooksby, or the more like-for-like shots of Brooksby is what I'd say, definitely. Both wings are.
I think the flatness of Cam's backhand is a real issue in this matchup. It maybe feels weird to say this after Opelka has just defeated Manarino twice in 2 weeks in a row. But I think, obviously, if the ball barely bounces, then that's going to be an issue for a guy who's 2 meters and 10 centimeters high, right? So,
but I mean, so on paper, I would expect Apelka to deal with the big loopy forehand a little bit better than other players, obviously. But it's not the case. I mean, it wasn't the case in this matchup, at least, and I don't know if it's because Cam is a lefty, kind of similar to Nadal, just spinning that forehand into anybody's backhand, unless it's really, really good, is going to be an issue. And I think it was. He wasn't able to flatten it out and hit a shot that was big enough on the backhand side for sure. It might have been...
Maybe it makes sense because he, as I mentioned, he played Manarino twice in a row, but Manarino also has a flat forehand, right? Compared to Norrie.
Exactly.
I
think
he
does.
He pretty much has 2 flat shots, and Norrie. Okay, but you're right. I also didn't think that. I thought that only the backhand side would be the issue in this matchup.
Well, yeah.
Would you also say that Opelka was like a little physically down?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how it seemed during the week, that he was just gradually getting worse.
I definitely would, and I expected the same thing, Damien, for sure, but he just didn't seem to be able to deal with it. Maybe it was just on the day. Bit of conditions as well, to be honest. It looked like it was a little bit difficult to hit through them, sort of sitting into Cam's wheelhouse a little bit for sure. Also, a little bit tight. I mean, the guy played three setters back to back to get to the final, and had obviously reached the final of Dallas. Probably played about as much tennis as he had in his career over the space of 2 weeks, probably. So it made sense that he was as tired as he was. Still, a good couple of weeks for him. He gets to a new career high of number 17 in the world. Cam Norrie returns to number 12 in the world. Brilliant prep for India and Wales. Damien, what do you think? Any chance he's going to defend his title?
The defending champion. Yeah. I mean, I think Cam Norrie was one of the guys, even I honestly, that you could really be worried that he wasn't going to, keep up with his 2021 form again. I think, his last year was simply so out of the blue that you're always kind of unsure whether this is going to continue. I don't know if it's going to continue to the extent that he's going to be winning Masters 1000 events again, but this is certainly a very reassuring title. Yeah, before that he had the Rotterdam quarterfinal, but still the match against Korda, for example, right, at the Australian Open, that was pretty tragic, and he managed to exact revenge here perfectly.
Yeah.
So that's also really important. Yeah, and Opelka, I believe maybe if they played in Dallas, he would have had a better chance against Norrie.
Yeah, exactly.
These conditions were crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, conditions definitely still a massive factor for Cam, who definitely prefers it slow, even though he's had success in hard courts. I mean, it needs it to be a little slow. I think that Australia wasn't a surprise at all when he lost to Korda. The conditions were so quick. Korda was just able to hit through them.
The extent of that loss was
yes.
Like, that was shocking.
But itself.
That was one of the blockbusters of the first round for sure.
Definitely.
On paper.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, the match didn't end up being too entertaining. Yeah.
yeah, I know. Yeah. Good week for Cam. I'm excited to see how he does it in Wales. If he can pull it off, be cool, obviously, for us British fans. So good luck to him. I think that's all we've got, Damien. That's us for the episode. Thank you very much, guys.
Really? There aren't any more ATP events.
I know, yeah. Jeez, I would have expected 3 more at least. Pretty crazy stuff. Incidentally, I mean, how many tournaments are there this week? Is it?
On the men's side, we've got Dubai, Acapulco, and Santiago, and I think there are 2 on the women's, right? Guadalajara and Doha.
Yeah, please join us next week for that. There'll be loads to talk about. Loads of big players coming back, obviously, this week. You know, Djokovic has just won his first match against Musetti, for example. Andy as well, won against Christopher O'Connell, etc., etc. Plenty to catch up on next week, I'm sure. Please join us. Thank you, everybody, for listening this far through. I am going to do a very quick plug on Damien, whether he likes it or not. You can catch him at Last Word on Sports. You can catch him on Twitter. Please give him a follow, etc., etc. Anything I'm sure would be appreciated by him, whether he says it or not. Please catch myself on jackover.substack.com for my blog. Thanks very much, guys, for listening. You can catch us next time on the Online Tennis Podcast. Cheers. Thank you, Damien.
Thank you.